Right, hello everyone. I want to talk to you about this book. So, this book by John Creter that's geared around overcoming all negative energy. Now, the title is The Vampire's Way to Psychic Self-Defense. Now, 2 points of contention there, probably for the masses. First of all, the term vampire. So when you think of vampire, you think of iconic Hollywood images of blood-sucking entities that drink your blood in order to survive. This is not what the author is talking about. What he's in fact talking about is ancient strategies employed by those that sought to survive in a very hostile environment and also to prolong their life as best they could by feeding off the energy of others. So they're also known as alchemists, sorcerers, magicians, and vampire is just one name that this ancient culture was given. Basically, it works off the idea that everything is energy. Everything is energy and vibration. So energy is unseen within our field, and whether we know it or not, we use it and get used by it. So let me explain. Throughout history, knowledge evolved from individuals that looked to develop vampiric-like techniques in order to acquire power and extend their lifespan. Now, I've already said to you, don't think of a vampire as the Hollywood image. Think of it as more of an alchemist. So I've talked about alchemy before. Alchemy is basically having the power within you, or recognizing the power within you to change outcomes, where you can choose what you do with the hand you've been dealt. So simply by receiving a stimulus and reacting to it in an agitated way, let's say, and then pausing for a moment and reframing how you think about said situation so that you change your perspective and now therefore change how you feel about it and your mood to a more positive energy and vibration. That in a nutshell is alchemy. Nothing mystical or magical about it. It's just having the ability to reframe your perspective to how you think and therefore affect how you feel. Right? Just bear that in mind. Now, the information in this book does not come from any new age angle meant to be of some kind of loving approach to life and the world. The information was developed and gathered by people with knowledge of the occult. So first of all, understand what the occult is. The occult simply is hidden knowledge. Knowledge that has been maintained and kept in secrecy by the few to control the masses. Occult knowledge simply means hidden knowledge. This information was gathered by these ancient cultures for the purpose of self-preservation within a hostile world. So in order to simply survive in such a world, they needed to develop predatory instincts and predatory claws. Now, the primary message here relates to psychic self-protection, which brings me to the second point of contention. The fact that psychic attacks happen from ethereal creatures that can only be called paranormal. So that's probably a difficult pill for many of you to swallow. You know, many of you have all been led to believe that this three-dimensional existence that we're in is it, and that magic and alchemy and paranormal experiences just don't exist. Well, that's flatly not true. But if you are somewhat awakened to what's going on in the world, current events, and you're aware of the complete scam that we're being fed, well, that may or may not have taken your awakening a stage further to where you are starting to realise that we are much more than this body and mind. That the spirit that exists within us, the consciousness, has been before and will go on. And we are part of something much greater. And once you start to get that acceptance of your spiritual self, that you're more than this body, that there is a mental body to you, an emotional body, a spiritual body, an ethereal body, auric field around us all the time that is having a cause-effect reaction to the energy that we're fed and what we're giving back out into the world in terms of what we manifest and experience. Once you start to get an understanding of that, you'll be more accepting of the fact that ethereal energies or entities exist out there. So you've heard the term black magic, white magic, magic. Well, those that have been controlling the masses for thousands of years through their tyranny and their indoctrination have been employing darker magic for a long time. So think about this. Even if you're not spiritually aware or awake or as receptive as some people are becoming, you will have noticed that whenever you walk into a room where there's a bad vibe, or somebody's just had an argument, or there's somebody being hostile, you can feel it. You can feel it in the atmosphere. Well, that is an entity energy of a kind. Now think about that on a collective level. Think about a narrative pushed to push the majority of the masses into mental decline. So depressive state. I mean, you've only got to look since the beginning of this scam. The amount of suicides that has taken place. Sadly, I've lost 2 people that I know, and somebody else recently who I know, a good friend of mine, made an attempt on his life just through sheer despair. And the narrative pushed by the mainstream media, which are little order following puppets for their masters, is geared towards doom and gloom all the time. And what it creates is a negative aura of energy out there via the collective. So the collective masses put out this vibration and energy that is dark, low density, depressing. And regardless of how upbeat, happy-go-lucky, positive attitude you might be, you can't deny feeling it. Particularly in recent months, it's thick, it's in the air. You can just feel it. Well, that's the energy I'm talking about. That's negative energy. That's ethereal entities have created that negative energy which we all feel. Now, if somebody feels down or depressed or anything else, they usually go to the doctor and they'll get some antidepressants, or they'll go to recreational drugs or alcohol, all of which are designed to create a low ebb state. The thing to realise is the few that control the many have been hurting us in many, many ways for a long, long time. And this scandemic is the guise for their depopulation program agenda. We're surplus now to requirements, and now they want to sterilise our kids, and they want to wipe out our elderly, and they want to get rid of the stupid. And the feeders that they call, that just don't contribute anything to society in their eyes. Regardless of whether you believe that or not, just look at some of the texts that have been written. French author in 1981 was talking about this. George Orwell in 1984 was talking about this. Agenda 21 talks about this. Agenda 2030 talks about this. If you look, there is plenty of evidence out there if you choose to look. That points in the direction of what I'm talking about. But the thing that gives them power more than anything else is their understanding of the occult, and their understanding how to put a collective negative energy out there that will affect masses. In the same vein, if we understood that, you could do the opposite. So think about a mass meditation. A mass meditation focusing on something positive will create a collective higher vibration. And this has been proven as documented evidence. But if you just think about energy as energy, regardless of whether it's positive or negative, it's around you all the time, and we react to it, right? So the fact that psychic attacks happen from ethereal creatures that could only be called paranormal is something that, for the purpose of listening to this video, I want you to get your head around if you can. Right? Now, for those of you that are still fucking fast asleep after 2 years of this bullshit, and of course this channel's not for you anyway, so what the fuck you doing here? Don't bother posting a comment that's negative, because I couldn't give a quarter a fuck what you think. But for those that are, still tuning in and listening, you might get something from this, right? So the primary message relating to psychic self-protection comes from taking more of a predatory stance as a means to transmutate what might be considered unusable negative energy into positive energy. So remember I said we're all alchemists. So the modern depiction of what we've led to believe is an alchemist is some bearded old wizard stirring a cauldron pot with all sorts of mystical, magical ingredients. That's not an alchemist. Alchemy is within you, and the cauldron is within you. You have the power to change how you think and how you feel, and in turn change the manifestation and the outcome of the life you live, simply by how you gear your thought patterns, how you wire and rewire your thoughts. We have the power within us to do that, and that's what makes us alchemists. That's why they say we're co-creators of our own universe. So the action of taking a negative field of energy and transmutating it into a positive, usable life force is alchemy in a nutshell. A power that lies within all of us. Feeling negative about something and then reframing your perspective of the said thing is another example of alchemy. There's nothing mystical or hocus pocus about it, as social conditioning would have you falsely believe. So remember, on a psychic, intuitive level, you've been dampened down forever. The indoctrination from education, the indoctrination from the workplace, further education, military, police, medical profession, dental profession, you name it. Everything has been manipulated and controlled. They're putting the fucking chemtrails, they're dumping chemicals and metals and aluminiums and toxins onto us all the time. What they put in the water, fluoride alone, it's calcified the pineal gland. They've done an autopsy on an old person, and the pineal gland, as I said before, was like a calcified rock, and it should be soft like a gummy bear. And the reason I say that Oh, look at that massive bee. I love bees. Defy nature. Something that fat and round shouldn't be able to fly, but it does. Anyway, the pineal gland, or your third eye, is really your primary eye. It's your intuitive gateway to spirituality, to tuning into what you are. And my third eye is fucking clearly open. Again, nothing mystical about it. It just means I'm more intuitive and more receptive. I have what's called the clair-knowing, clair-cognitive. You know, clairvoyant, I don't see. Clair-auditory, I don't hear. I have a knowing when something is right or not. Anyway, the idea of taking the energy that's around you, that's either directed directly at you by somebody, negative vibe, or the collective vibration that's around you that is just heavy and thick in the air, is unused energy. So when somebody gets upset or flares up or has an outburst or whatever else, they are letting off these negative energy flares. That's taxing their, their sympathetic nervous system, that's taxing their being, that's taxing them on an emotional and physical level without me even realising. Now, when that energy is expelled out into the air, the idea of this vampire's way to psychic self-defense was to absorb that energy, to breathe it in, breathe it into the body, and transmutate it into positive life-giving force. So in order to do this, you must think momentarily like they thought and own some of the predatory attributes that they developed and that started this methodology to begin with. Right? So when you think about psychic self-defense or protecting yourself from negative entities, you'll think about what most people in the spiritual world talk about, and that's putting up a psychic shield or a pentagram ritual, or surrounding yourself with garlic and crystals, or some sort of psychic cleansing, saging, that kind of thing. Well, that is kind of a defensive mindset. So I'm putting a white orb of light around me that's protecting me from any negative entities, and that may work for a while, but it requires constant energy to keep feeding it, keep doing it. This is where I'm going with it, right? So this person, through the Peaceful Warrior channel, reached out to me, and he's a spiritual coach, if you like. Works with many high-level people, earns a good living at this kind of life coaching in a spiritual sense thing. And he'd been following my work for 15 years, and he said to me, now you're starting to have your spiritual awakening, what do you do to protect yourself against, like negative energy and entities? And I said, well, what I've heard, imagine putting a light bulb around you that's bright silver, just deflects off any negative kind of thoughts or energies. And using the power of your imagination here. And he goes, right, he said, but let me ask you this, if you was a cornered animal and someone was going to assault you, what would you do? I said, I'd preempt the cunt and I'd blitzkrieg through him until he was a little shit smear on the pavement. Because exactly, it's an offensive strategy. So you need to take a similar offensive strategy on a psychic self-protection level. Hence this book. And he recognised this book, he recommended this book, Vampire's Way to Psychic Self-Defense. And he also recommended another book by the same author, John Creter, overcoming the archons through alchemy. So think of archon as a negative force. Think of alchemy as your ability to take that energy and do something more productive with it. And that's what this is about. Now, the focus of this book is to control negative feelings and negative surrounding energy. After first realizing and understanding that we can all be attacked by ethereal entities that could only be classed as paranormal. Early alchemists understood that this energy can be channeled and transmutated into usable life force. In ancient civilizations, what he terms as vampires were considered sorcerers or magicians, and they learned to absorb and employ the subtle energy that exists all around us. Other examples can be found in ancient China, where Taoist alchemists speak of the collection and redistribution of qi, or life force energy, in order to prolong life. This tradition is far older than even ancient China, and links to many shamanic cultures throughout the world exist. There are old traditions found all over the world state that all things are energy based. Human beings are born with a certain amount of energy and create a certain amount of energy. Unfortunately, as human beings, along with most other organic life forms, we're full of holes on an energetic level, like a bucket with many leaks. So negative people, events, the negative narrative being pushed right now will all take its toll and suck out your energy. So over this period of time, those of you that have started to suffer with bouts of depression, maybe that weren't you before, and you just lost hope, direction, that's the effect of the negative energy in the environment sucking your energy out of you, right? And if you don't understand that, you'll dwell on it and make it worse, or you'll seek solace elsewhere, alcohol, recreational drugs, or antidepressants, or whatever else. You won't look at the prospect that you're being attacked on a psychic level, and that might be very difficult for some of you to grasp. But like I said, if you have no awakening to what's going on and no spiritual awakening to what we really are, then none of this will make any sense to you. But once you do start to develop that, then you research, and the research has put me in touch with some great people, and they've given me great recommendations. So this book is just one. We do not live in a static environment. We prey upon the world and are preyed upon by others. Man has this misconception that he's top of the food chain. We're really not top of the food chain. Those in control of the occult knowledge that use this psychic energy to their advantage in a dark way are top of the food chain. The rest of us are just fodder for their enjoyment, unless you get learned and unless you get armed with some means to protect yourself. So the guy that told me about this book, who asked me the question, well, what would I do if I'm threatened by somebody? And I said I'd blitzkrieg through them. To understand what that is, blitzkrieg is a concept. It's an offensive, proactive campaign designed to totally fucking overwhelm the enemy before he has any chance of retaliation or recovery. So how do you apply that concept on a psychic level to dealing with an ethereal negative entity? Well, the ancients believed there that in order to maintain vigour and health, you have to take that energy, take that life energy from the world around you, and seek to seal up as many of your energetic leaks as possible. seek to redistribute that untapped energy resource in the most practical way possible. As one example, those who have an understanding of the effect that negative energy can have on others, particularly when the energy and vibration is deployed collectively by the masses, as is being directed by the current narrative, will know it can feel like a thick, toxic atmosphere, as it's intended by all the following mainstream media. Many don't realise and will often think it's just something peculiar to them as the individual, and like I said, they go to the doctors, get antidepressants, or they hit a bottle, or some kind of recreational drug, or some shit like that. They won't address the fact that, as these ancient cultures knew, that these are probing entities trying to sap your energy. So Tesla said it, Einstein said it. If you think about how the universe works, you need to think in terms of energy and vibration. Everything is energy and vibration. So we assume that we are this dense physical matter surrounded by dense physical objects, but actually everything is vibratory, everything is vibrating, and it's just not seeable to the eye, right? So if you imagine you're playing a radio station, and then in traffic a car drives past, and then another radio station bleeds in to yours, you get this moment of a different frequency, right? Which normally you don't hear. Well, that's pretty much how you might sum this up in terms of, you know, other vibrational energy sources that are around you. You just can't see them because you're not on the right frequency. If you could see them, right, I believe it would look like this. So there's many people that have experimented in the know with certain types of thermal imaging that have shown people's auras, you know. So they say that we have a physical body, a mental body, an emotional body, a spiritual body, these etheric layers which could be considered an aura, and you know, different colors and frequencies of light. And if you could see them, because you know, you could tune into that kind of frequency, you would see them distinctly. And what you would also see is the energy outside of them. And I picture it as like almost a dark smoke that attacks your auric field, seeking to make perforations. And then once it makes a perforation, it gets in and it sucks your energy. So, you get a collective doom and gloom atmosphere. It's just thick in the air. Everyone feels it, no matter how much you try to avoid it. If you could actually see what was going on, I picture it as these etheric entities that would just seek to perforate your auric field, sap your energy. And that's why the ancients knew, you know, they've got to shore up as many leaks as you can and take a more predatory stance in terms of dealing with this. So, you know, white orbs of light and crystals and garlic and pentagram circles, all well and good, but they're defensive. And like any strategy, if you're defending, you're fucking losing. So taking more of a predatory stance is the answer that they suggest. Those who are starting to awaken and have taken more of a esoteric path will know, just as our ancestors knew, that attacks on a psychic level like I've been talking about fucking happen. We need to borrow some of the old vampires' courage and will, of special importance to us in battling negative forces are their ruthlessness and their fearlessness, predatory stance that they took. So how is it possible to deal with negative energy, and more importantly to them, how is it possible to deal with negative entities that seem to make life a living hell? It seems to me that attacks by negative entities of one form or another are on the rise. Well, if you think about, like I said, the constant fucking narrative pushed, and the predictable outcome of what's coming next. I mean, just the fuel crisis was a little feeler, a little test. Let's create a fuel crisis, see how they panic. Oh, look at them all panicking. Next there'd be food shortage. And next there'd be a new strain. Then it'd be the threat of another lockdown. And then when they're done with this scamdemic, next thing will be global warming. And then ultimately, probably alien invasion or something like that, all geared towards controlling the population and the masses, controlling how they think and how they feel. I mean, just do your research on ley lines. Most of the government buildings are all laid on ley lines. Ley lines draw the energy, so imagine these things collectively feed off negative energy. It's what makes them thrive in low density. And of course, the awakening of this planet, the ascension of this planet, has created a high level of consciousness and will continue to do so, which eventually means that the majority, or enough of the majority, will awaken to the fact that we've been lied to all this time, and we are being fed off from the moment that you are born. Your birth certificate is taken, your blood sample is sent to the Vatican, you are put on the fucking slave stock market. You are bargained with. They then put on the market and gamble because they should get at least 25 years of labour out of you as an adult. Now, I suppose if you're still asleep, like I said, we're not comprehending any of this. But disclosure's coming, it's being drip fed. But when people realise, because like I said before, the apocalypse simply means removing the veil. The age of the Aquarius is the time of knowing. The Mayans talked about this time. Many cultures have talked about this time, how there's going to be an ascension of the energy and vibration on the planet, which will increase and enhance people's intelligence level and consciousness, which means people will be awakened to what's been going on all this time, how we've been controlled, and they feed off this energy. So getting back to the ley lines, if you look at a lot of the London rallies, the way that they're all geared to funnel the people to a certain point in Hyde Park by the end of the day, and then heavy-handed road cops come running in and create mass panic. Right? It's a huge collective vibrational negative energy that they feed off. I know it sounds crazy, but anyone that has an understanding of what is will get a grasp of what I'm saying. So the general human view of reality would have us all believe that we live in a highly mechanical world filled with objects. This tells us that humans are objects like everything else made of biological matter that has evolved over millions of years to the point of sentience. Humans sit atop a long evolutionary ladder and are the apex predators on this planet, controlling a greater part of the environment, thanks to the evolutionary marvel of the human brain. But that's not true, because the fact is we use approximately 5% of our brain capacity. So neocortex, cognitive brain, then subconscious brain, then unconscious brain, reptilian brain. 95% is unused, and my bet is because we've been dulled down and pacified. through the chemtrails, through the food, through what they put in the soil, what they put in the water, what they put in the atmosphere, through the social conditioning on social media, through the indoctrination from young. The pineal glands become calcified. People can't tap into what they are. But that's going to change. And since the planetary alignment, from the last winter solstice time, when there was that alignment of Jupiter and Saturn, the vibration of the planet as a whole starts to ascend. And they reckon that by 2030, pretty much every organic being on this planet will reach that higher level of frequency, that more fifth dimensional domain. In which case there's no hiding place for these things anymore that have been doing what they've been doing. So by these things I mean those at the top of the pyramid that control the masses, the selected bloodlines that have for 6,000 plus years controlled everything. So they're the string pullers. But they're not the only string pullers. They're having their strings pulled too. There's something above them that controls them and they control us. And that's what's been happening. And it's all feed off your energy based. It's low vibration. Look at the wars, look at the famine, look at the man-made created diseases, look at the strife that we've had in here on by their account of history. It shouldn't be like that. It shouldn't be like that. You know, we should be an ecosystem that, just like in nature, supports life, supports growth. Instead of that, we live in a highly complex and savage ecosystem. A dog-eat-dog world created by greedy little egomaniacs. And their life force energy is our despair, our depression, our low vibrational frequency is what they feed off. But the ancients knew this, and they knew that such attacks take place on an etheric level by entities that are negative energy generating, and they're like phantasms that just absorb your energy. And there's, you could think of them as like predatory non-organic or inorganic beings that just thrive off of hurt and pain, generating fear. And that's their power, fear. You know? That's what they get their energy from. You'll notice that many of these events that have taken place, you know, lockdowns and all these sanctions things, happen at certain periods of time that are relevant. So summer solstice, winter solstice, autumn equinox, you know, all of these times throughout this whole scam over the last 2 years has been during significant poignant dates. That's the point brought to bear in mind. Here's the strategy recommended, right? Much more proactive and offensive. Think about creating a light orb around you to protect you, which is defensive, which would need constant maintenance and power of thought. Think about it in a more offensive sense, where you are actively looking and seeking energy that you can feed off. Now, don't misinterpret what this author's saying. You're not feeding off people's energy. So somebody has a negative energy release, a flare of energy, that's dispersed into the atmosphere, if you like. and they're never getting it back. They're never going to use it for any good. It's just there. So if you could draw that energy into you by breath and imagine it sitting down behind your navel into what the Chinese call a dantian. So imagine this space behind your navel, your dantian, as your cauldron. So you are the alchemist. You choose what you do with what you've given. You choose your response to how you react. If you flare up and act negatively, you are leaking negative energy that these entities feed off. Whereas if you take this energy down into this space, into your cauldron, and then think about transmutating it into a positive life force, then that's the alchemy. You are changing the outcome. And all you're really doing is reframing or reconstructing how you think about things. So rather than think, oh, doom and dread and this and that, take a predatory stance to it, right? So there will be most likely be some part of you that will have difficulty in seeing energy as just energy instead of malice and negativity. In order to combat these thoughts that are probably impossible to overcome because the intent of others, after all, is quite usually negative, you will have to engage a highly neglected aspect of your psyche, that of your predatory nature. You need to remember that we were supposed to be predators, and you need to remember that we have claws, we have etheric claws. So the predatory stance is very important for two reasons. First, it will allow you to transmute what is referred to as negative energy into personal useful energy, so that you can thrive from what others discard. So if somebody's letting off a negative flare because they're angry about something, rather than that affect your vibe, the objective would be to breathe that energy in, put it down into your cauldron and transmutate it, as I'll explain. If you find yourself in a place that is full of negativity, you will not be able to accomplish anything positive there. The positivity movement, as I call it, is based on the fact that they believe that you must be around positivity all the time so that you can exude this positivity. You will become better and better. Well, this isn't an erroneous concept because it does not separate intent from basic energy. In order for you to thrive from what is referred to as negative energy, you must mentally turn yourself into a predatory creature. Think of yourself as actively grabbing and consuming the supposed negative energy. Remember, the predator takes, he leads, he consumes, he makes it his own. This is the mindset that you must develop. So instead of thinking, oh, I hope I don't get any negative vibes around me today, think about it as actively looking for it so you can seek your next meal. You transmute something by changing your internal belief structure, and by doing so, the great power of the whole self, higher self, is able to change the energetic structure of the life force in your cauldron. Transmutation, therefore, is the act of changing foreign intent through the power of your personal intent. So he goes on to say, I like to imagine that I'm ingesting a black cloud, a dark evil mist that enters into me through my efforts and pulls itself into my cauldron. Current logic on the subject would have you believe that this is one of the most terrible things you can do, because you are basically eating poison. This might be the case if you maintain such old erroneous beliefs about what life energy really is. But through the use of a more predatory mindset, you are essentially transmuting that negative pull into a positive life-giving energy. As you attack this negative energy, you bite down on it, you eat it, you consume it, you bring it right down into your tention, you swallow it down into your cauldron. So imagine it as a black cloud around you, and you just in right down with the reverse breathing method that I'm going to talk about in a minute. You've got it right down behind your navel. It's in your cauldron, and it's thrashing around. It's trying to escape, but you've got your etheric claws deep into it, and it's held in place. And this dark ball of energy just transmutates into a light ball of energy. And you use affirmation and words and visualization along with this method that allows you to transmute. I take this energy and I transmutate it into positive life force. Now you are feeding off it. So remember, the strategies employed by these alchemists incorporated nothing more than a reverse breathing pattern, the power of visualization, seeing something change in your mind with an affirmation, a positive affirmation. And I really encourage you to get this book and read it and try the steps that I'm talking about, and you will feel in that moment empowered. In that moment, if I felt agitated, angry, pissed off in some way, I've been trying this method of imagine that it's just a cloud of energy around me, negative dark energy, and I suck it in right down to my abdomen. I lock it in this cauldron and I transmutate it into bright, powerful life force. And then when I expel it back out into the earth, I'm sending out a much more positive vibration. So I'll breathe in the dark, transmute it for light, and breathe it back out into the earth. Predatory demeanor will allow you to have the energy and the intent to fight off negative intent of others. Predator is a hunter. A hunter never gives up without fighting. When you successfully engage your predatory self, you will be able to actively fight off mean and harmful intent, because your intent is a fierce predatory creature, and it will grab the energy behind this bad foreign intent and consume it, eat it alive, strip it to the bone like a piranha's feasting on a limb. By consuming this energy, you are doing all of humanity a service, doubly so that you can use this transmuted energy to think positive thoughts and use your intent to wish kindness upon others. I would dare to say that this is the greatest thing you can do for the human race at this moment. So when you think about that collective energy, rather than contribute to it, think about consuming it, transmutating it and sending light back out. If we all did that on a collective level, their black use of alchemy would fail. It's time for you to do what others have done before you. You must take this energy and make it your own. Suck it up, so that instead of being driven out and intimidated, you become stronger and more motivated. To consume this energy in a predatory fashion, remember to use every single thing in your arsenal. Do your breathing first. Visualize this energy coming into you, perhaps like a dark cloud, and in your mind repeat your statement of intent, something like, I take this energy and I make it mine. When you think that you have a good amount of energy absorbed, you can do the reverse breathing technique and imagine that you are pulling all of this energy into your cauldron. Assume that predatory attitude I have been mentioning so much, and try to feel like a true alchemist, a very hungry vampire. Finally, imaginatively feel yourself ingesting this energy that you have pulled in your cauldron. Relish the feel of it as your body rips it apart and makes it your own, feeding and empowering you into becoming an even more powerful beast. In this way, you will actually be affecting everyone present through a remarkable alchemical change, turning the most negative of situations into a highly positive one. So, if you think about breath work, the idea is breathe in through the nose, out through the mouth. Well, when you breathe in through the nose, The idea is to breathe properly, breathe deep down into your belly so your belly protrudes and then fills your chest. The method recommended here is what's referred to as reverse breathing. Reverse breathing is, but as you breathe in, imagine the air coming in through your nose and right down into your abdomen. Pull your abdomen in tight as you're breathing. Tuck your pelvis, tighten your perineum. Imagine crunching your pelvis to your sternum, compressing the air down into your visualized cauldron. So you're sucking in that black cloud, bringing it down into your cauldron, and it's caught airtight in a bubble. Can't escape. It goes one stage further to say, imagine that you have etheric claws where you just literally retract them, drive them into the entity and feed it down into you. Just mince it up, shred it up while it's down there. And then this transmutation, turning it into white light with your visualization as you affirm, I take this energy and I transmutate it into a positive life-giving force. Hold the breath, hold it, imagine it transmutate from dark to white and then expel it out. Do this as many times as you feel you need to until the feeling has passed. And I can tell you, from my experience of doing it, it reframes my previous perspective and changes my mood. So if you remember the fact that all we have until we check out from this realm is a series of continuous moments of now, then if you could choose how you live each of those moments via how you think to affect how you feel, then you can live every one of those moments harmoniously. You can choose to do that, and that's what they mean when they say you are the co-creator of your universe. Source energy, God, is within you. You choose what you do with what you've given. You choose what you do with what you've been given. So as an example, my early upbringing forced me to leave home at the age of 11, become a street kid. I was nearly 16, I was on the streets. Was a ridiculous level of abuse at home from one person that should have took care of me most. Now, anyone that's been through that can choose to remain a victim and will quite often choose to victimise others. It's a circle of events that they can't break. Well, that's in a sense choosing something negative to do with what you were given, whereas I chose a very, very different path. I made my martial prowess a goal. I made dealing with violence, aggression and nasty people my vocation in life. I say, it's a mistake to push a man to violence, particularly when violence is what he spent most of his life perfecting. And the reason that I did that is so that I could help many other people not to ever go through what I went through. So I chose something extremely positive out of that negative energy, and I transmutated it. I chose what I did with what I was given, and it made me who I am. So that's alchemy, and it's within us all. Nothing hocus pocus about it. We choose what we do with what we're given, no matter how foreboding it may seem. Now, if you're faced with clear and present danger, immediate threat, then of course you will respond to that accordingly. And chances are, right now, all the way listening through this video, you're alright. You're not under any threat right now. Everything's cool. So you can choose to live this moment peacefully and happily, harmoniously. So when you feel that negative energy around you, or someone's said something about you and pissed you off, or somebody's giving you a bad comment on your fucking social media, or whatever it is, if it's directed at you, it's just in the atmosphere, or it's just a collective thing, that's energy that you can use. Don't let it use you the way they've designed it. You can suck that in down into your cauldron and affirm that you will transmutate it into a usable life force and then breathe it back out. And if you just do that, you'll notice your previous angst emotional state is now miraculously calm. So, get this book. Funny enough, it's on Amazon. Yeah. Part of the corporate giants that are all part of this fucking problem. They say the devil likes to gloat, but use it, because, you know, this kind of information is like a first aid toolkit for your psyche. So yes, you should protect yourself, keep yourself healthy, make this a clean vessel, you know, think good thoughts, eat good food, hydrate, look after your body, absolutely. Look after yourself in a physical self-protection sense, learn how to do that. Look after this as well. Look after yourself on a psychic level, because dark energy's out there. It's probing us all the time, whether you believe it or not. You know, get this book, John Greta, Vampire's Way to Psychic Self-Defense. There's another little YouTube review that somebody's done on this book that will explain to you the reverse breathing and the strategy. But just think of it as, it's like the blitzkrieg of psychic self-defense. Instead of putting up an orb of light and protection and hoping that, you know, negative energies won't probe you, actively seek them out, devour them, grab them by the fucking throat with your etheric claws, suck them down into your abdomen and burn them alive. Absorb the fucking energy, feast off these entities. Imagine it in your head. As soon as it's down here, it's like shrieking and screaming, trying to escape, realising what a mistake it made selecting you. Get that predatory stance, and it will give you much more control on an emotional level, on a spiritual level, on a psychological level, to be able to deal with what you're faced with. You know, remember, we all shuffle off this mortal coil. All of us. All men die. Not all men live. Choose how you want to fucking live. And I believe we go on, because the consciousness within this skin vehicle has been many times before and will be again. But, you know, learn to become the alchemist that you truly are. And I think an offensive strategy works well here.